What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another very exciting episode right here on the MIgardener channel. If it looks like I'm the happiest guy on earth, that's because I am, because it's tomato season. We are starting our tomatoes finally. It is mid-March. It is time to start our tomatoes. Now, we're going to be starting a whole lot of different tomatoes. We're going to be walking you through our trays, our soil, mistakes that I don't want to see you make, the varieties we're growing. It's going to be a great episode. I hope you guys are ready for it. And with that, let's get started. When it comes to growing tomatoes from seed, it is important to get the timing right. Now, obviously with seed starting, timing is everything, but with tomatoes, it's probably the most critical. So you start too late, you don't have that much time to grow the tomato before the growing season is over. If that sounds crazy, yeah, we always think about that when we start our seeds, because when growing a indeterminate tomato, an indeterminate grows all season long. The longer you can be growing it in the growing season, the more you're going to get, the bigger the plant is going to be. So we want to start our stuff early, but starting too early can also be a problem. You see, if you start too early and you don't have room for it, or you don't have the infrastructure to grow that plant, you're going to have a stressed plant. And a stressed plant is not a healthy plant. You're going to have a weaker, less productive plant in the long run. So it's kind of this delicate tightrope of, do I start too early? Do I start too late? And for us, I find the ideal time, and this is gonna be different for everybody, but the ideal time for us is right around March 6th, because that gives us enough time for about a week for the seeds to germinate. That takes us until about mid-March. Then once we're probably in like about March 12th or March 15th by the time we get seeds up and growing. They're then going to stay in these 1 inch by 1 inch cells, which that's kind of spoiler what we're using. We're using our Bootstrap Farmer 128 cell tray here. Absolutely love these because of the depth. They're nice and deep to accommodate for good root development. They also are really easy to remove the plants when they're fully grown and ready to be transplanted. And it provides a lot of open cell space for us to really maximize how many plants we're growing from seed in a square foot. This is probably, in my opinion, one of my favorite trays to start seeds in. The final thing here is that they're only going to stay in here for about 3 to 5 weeks. After that point, they're going to be transplanted into a 3-inch pot, where that's where they're going to live and thrive until they're ready to go into the garden. So what I want to do is I want to kind of time this out right, because too long in these trays equals a stressed seedling, but then too early as well equals a huge seedling. Like, even if I do everything right and I start too early and I transplant at the right times, you might still end up with a seedling that's 1.5 feet tall and flowering before it's even in the garden. And that's not good either. So what we want to do is time it out right. And for us, March 6th is right around the best time. Today's March 10th, and that's okay too. Soil we've gone with here is our usual Pro Mix. Pro Mix is a really loose, fluffy, well-draining soil, but also holds on to moisture. It is pH balanced peat moss. That means that the peat moss is normally fairly acidic, but it's been amended with dolomitic lime, and I absolutely love that about Pro Mix. It makes application for a variety of different crops so simple. Now, if you don't have Pro Mix or you don't have a seed starting mix, you want to make sure you sift a potting mix down to 1/4 inch. We've got videos on that. Or make your own. Get yourself some coconut husk fiber and then add in some perlite, vermiculite. We also have videos on that as well. You can make it super cheap. Regardless, you want a well-draining, very rich and loose potting mix or seed starting mix to start your seeds in. And then once we've got the soil in, this is a big mistake I see gardeners making, starting with a tray like this and putting your seeds inside. Now you might be thinking, Luke, what the heck? How is that a mistake? You'll notice there's one thing I did not do yet, and that's compact. Now, with the right type of soil, this makes all the difference. For any seeds that you're starting, compacting the soil, it pre-compresses. Because what would happen if I was to get this wet is all those air gaps would compress and collapse, and I'd end up really with a lot less soil in the cell than had I pre-compacted. So by pressing this soil down, I'm essentially settling that soil into the cell and really removing any large air gaps, which are going to be counterproductive for root development. It's going to be counterproductive for the overall plant health. It's also going to be counterproductive for soil volume. Now that I have the trays compacted, now I can go ahead and I can plant my seed. Ideally, you want the seed to be about 1/4 inch deep. So I've gone and I've pressed these cells down roughly about 1/4 inch, really compressing and compacting that soil to, again, remove any air gaps. That is such a critical mistake I see a lot of gardeners making. And then once you put your seeds in, the seeds float all around or the soil drops. It's a big mistake. So now let's get into the seeds that we're going to be starting. Before I get into the varieties we're starting, I also want to touch on another mistake that I see gardeners making, and that's not adding fertilizer into the seed starting mix. I have been a huge advocate of this for the past couple years because I've personally noticed massive results by adding a slow all-purpose fertilizer into your seed starting mix. We use Trifecta Plus. That's what I just was holding in my hand. That is what is in this tray, and that is what is in this seed starting mix here that we've just kind of pre-mixed and put into this tray. Because here's the thing. You're going to hear a lot of gardeners that say, yeah, but when the seed is just germinating, it doesn't need any nutrients. That is correct. The seed coating contains all the nutrients and energy that that plant needs to sprout and grow. However, as soon as that plant starts to produce adult leaves, those nutrients are gone. That is like essentially in an egg, it has all of the nutrients inside the egg for that chicken to grow or that bird or whatever it is to fully grow and develop. Once it hatches, it needs food from the mother or needs to go be able to get food on its own, or it will die. And the same exact thing applies to your plants. As soon as that plant starts to produce adult leaves, all those nutrients that were there are no longer there. And that is why having fertilizer in a seed starting mix is something that I advocate, because once the plant is ready to uptake it, it can start to uptake it right in these trays. And because it's going to stay in these trays for 3 to 5 weeks, it is absolutely going to be taking up nutrients during that process. And the healthier your plant is in this stage means the healthier it's going to be in the long run. Starting healthy means ending healthy. If you start sick, it's always an uphill battle. So give yourself a fighting chance by putting a little bit of fertilizer in. We used a 1/4 cup per gallon. So basically we took an eyeball measurement of a gallon of soil. We threw a 1/4 cup of Trifecta into that gallon, swished it around, and then that's what we threw into our trays. So now let's talk about varieties. For the first round of tomatoes we're starting here, we're starting with our yellow tomatoes. I got the Kellogg's Breakfast, a beautiful yellow beefsteak. I also have a yellow Brandywine, another really large, very disease-resistant yellow beefsteak. I have an orange Oxheart. This is more of a yellow-orange bicolor. It is really meaty, super amazing. I absolutely love this one, very low acid. Pork chop, this is a small to medium-sized slicing tomato with a yellow and gold striping, absolutely beautiful. We have pineapple. This is our all-time favorite tomato from the yellow category, just because it has got such great flavor, really low acid. It's a yellow-red bicolor, absolutely incredible and absolutely giant. We have gold medal. This ranks as one of the largest tomatoes for heirloom tomatoes. Regularly we'll get 2 to 3 pounds. This is one that we've grown in the past, absolutely love, and we're going to be growing it again this year. We've taken a kind of a break from it just because we've grown it so long. We tried other varieties. Now we're coming back to it. And then we got the Dr. Wyche's yellow tomato. This is more of like a yellowy orange, but absolutely incredible. One of my favorite all-purpose orange tomatoes. Actually, believe it or not, one of my favorite uses for this is making an orange ketchup. It is so, so good. Really low acid, very sweet, and super productive. Up next are my red tomatoes. Now we're gonna be starting a lot more tomatoes than just what we're starting here. This is just 16 of probably 50 varieties we're gonna be growing this year. So I've got only 3 red tomatoes from this batch, but we're gonna be starting more tomatoes later. I got the Mortgage Lifter, a huge red tomato, absolutely insane. The Typhon Mennonite, one of my all-time favorite red tomatoes, kind of red-pink tomatoes. This is a crowd favorite in our house. Super meaty, but really low juice. Awesome for making crushed tomato sauce. And then I've got Abe Lincoln. This is, again, a fan favorite. Very acidic, very classic tomato punch flavor. It is just absolutely productive, and we love it. Then I've got the black tomatoes. Now, the black tomatoes, I'm only growing 2 black tomatoes this year. I've grown a lot more in the past, but we're focusing more on tomatoes that we really use and love. And these are great for fresh eating just because they have awesome flavor. But I got the Black Seaman and the Cherokee Purple tomato. Both of these tomatoes are very productive. They are very beautiful. They're slicing / beefsteak tomatoes. They are incredible. They just don't have quite as many uses for us as some of our orange or red tomatoes do. So we're only growing 2 of those this year, but that's okay because, we've grown a lot more in the past and we do still enjoy them. It's just for our uses this year, we're kind of just changing up our strategy a little bit. And then we've got our paste tomatoes. Now our paste tomatoes, we're also gonna be starting a lot more of these. This is just what we're starting today. Up first, I got the Napoli tomato. This is probably one of our most favorite paste tomatoes right now, just because of its disease resistance, how productive it is. It is just really, really reliable, which I love. Next, I've got a super rare one here. This is the MIgardener paste. This is one that is actually in the slow food arc of taste. If you are not familiar with what the slow food is, slow food movement is basically a movement around growing heirlooms that are culturally significant and have been around for a very long time and are endangered species. These are ones that risk going extinct if they are not saved and preserved. This is an incredibly large, I mean, we're talking huge paste tomato, and absolutely love it. This is kind of a favorite of mine just because of the size. These will sometimes get up to a pound, which is a massive paste tomato. Next, I got the Jersey Devil. This is a go-to crowd favorite for Mrs. MIgardener. She loves to turn these into tomato paste, tomato sauce, pizza sauce. This is kind of her favorite. She just loves this one, so I'm gonna grow some of those for her. And then San Marzano. If you're making a pizza, you're making some Italian spaghetti sauce, pizza sauce, pasta sauce of any kind, San Marzano is the go-to. We can these up whole, we crush them down. They are just awesome. And so we're gonna be growing a lot of these this year because our goal this year is to focus on, again, canning. We're gonna be doing a lot of canning this year, and this is one that we always turn to for that purpose. I don't get it, Hannah. Like every single time we film these seed starting videos, after we upload, I always check the comments, and there's always a good amount of people that think our videos are sponsored by ProMix. I don't quite understand why they would think that, but.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I'm joking, obviously. These videos are not sponsored, and you know that we don't do sponsorships, and if we do, we fully disclose it. It's not something that we are trying to hide. We just absolutely love it. And to be honest, if you want to grab some, we're a little bit biased, obviously, just because we sell it over at MIgardener.com for a limited time. If you're interested to go pick up some, there might even be none left because we don't sell that much of it, but we do bring some in just because we buy a lot for our own seed starting, and so sometimes we throw some up if we have extra on the website. So no, not sponsored, just absolutely love it. So we're just wrapping up here with the orange. I'm moving on now to the red tomatoes. And a lot of questions come up around seed heat mats and seed starting, whether you should use them, whether you shouldn't. And I am of the mindset that if you can use a heat mat correctly, they can be very beneficial. If you do not know how to use a heat mat correctly, they can be very detrimental. They can actually hurt your seed starting experience. So because of that, I would leave that up to your skill level. I would say that they are personally a very beneficial tool. I will be using them to start our seeds. We got our heat mats here. These are our MIgardener heat mats, shameless plug. They are amazing. And because of that, we're going to throw them on the heat mats, and we're going to dramatically increase our rate of germination and the time that it takes for them to germinate, because the longer they sit in the soil, the higher the risk of mold, rot, issues like damping off. And so what we're doing is we're essentially helping to expedite that process using a heat mat. Once our seeds germinate, they are going to be taken off the heat mat. You do not want seeds on a heat mat once they germinate. That will stress them out. That will help the soil to dry out too fast. A lot of bad things can happen with leaving a heat mat on too long. But for seed germination purposes, if you know how to use it correctly and you're aware of some of the learning curves behind a heat mat, I would absolutely recommend it for anyone, especially with tomatoes and peppers when they like warm soil to germinate. Soil temperature that we're kind of shooting for is right around 75 to 85 degrees. That's the sweet spot for tomatoes. And they're going to be germinating in that soil temperature in right around 5 to 7 days. One last variety here for the red, and then we're going to move on. And like I said, this is just the start. So many people ask me, Luke, why are you starting so many tomatoes? Like, there's no way you can eat all those. And you'd be correct. We give away a lot of tomato seedlings to our friends and family. We also start a lot more than we actually intend on planting, so we can select the healthiest of the bunch. And we also have the farm this year, which is going to be new for us. And we're going to be growing a lot of tomatoes at the farm just for seed saving purposes, for experimentation, but also so that we can donate to our local soup kitchens and food pantries, because they do a lot of really great work in our community, and we've always been big advocates of helping out your community when possible. And so this just gives us an opportunity to pay it forward. So we're going to be starting a lot of extra tomatoes this year, just simply so we can donate the tomatoes to those causes. And the final question a lot of you ask with growing tomatoes, and one that I wanted to talk about and cover, is the topic of humidity domes. So many of you have wrote in saying, Luke, I'm starting my tomatoes, and I know you talk about how critical soil moisture is. I would like to use a humidity dome to help hold that moisture in my soil. Is that a good idea? And my answer to that is no. A heat mat has a certain level of learning curve that can really help you start seeds easier, help them germinate faster. Absolutely. A humidity dome is more or less, and this is going to be a kind of contentious opinion, but it is just my opinion from results that I've seen myself and results that I've seen in the community, that a humidity dome gives you the excuse to not check on your plants, to water them less, and to simply hold the excess moisture in the container. And what I find happen is oftentimes as plants are growing, that humidity is retained and you have excess humidity trapped inside, not able to breathe. And if you don't regularly check on your plants, they can suffer from damping off so much faster, mold, rot, even powdery mildew at an early stage, gray mold, early blight. So many things can happen in a high humidity environment, and tomatoes are some of the most susceptible to soil-borne funguses and disease. Because of that, I do not want to risk starting off a tomato plant with those things that can come with a high humidity environment. So under no circumstances would I ever recommend using a humidity dome. What I'd recommend you do is be a very hands-on gardener. Come in here and mist your plants as needed. Make sure that they don't in fact need moisture. Don't rely on a tool to do the job for you. That is just in my opinion, it's a recipe for mediocre results. And again, that's just my opinion. I know there's lots of people that will say otherwise, but where I say a humidity dome can be beneficial is in propagating cuttings. When those cuttings, whether you're propagating a basil cutting, a tomato cutting, or some other type of herb, which is commonly propagated, those cuttings could be rosemary. Rosemary is the type of herb I was talking about. I don't know what you're thinking. But if you are propagating those cuttings, humidity is very important because those cuttings, if they lose moisture, the cutting will fail. And that's really where a humidity dome is beneficial, not in starting seeds. So that's just from my evidence that I found. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you all learned something new. If you did, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. It's free, and I appreciate it. And also, if you did really enjoy and you learned something, share this video with a friend. That really, really helps spread this content around to more people that could benefit from it. And with that, I hope you guys have fun starting tomato seeds. Get your stuff started. Let me know in the comments box below what you are starting. And as always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to grow bigger. Take care. Bye. Hey, thank you so much for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, consider clicking this one. You'll probably enjoy it just as much. I want to thank you for your viewership because without it, this channel would not be as amazing as it is. Also, if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. It's free, and we upload videos every Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. We also have vegetable seeds, fertilizer, or tools. If you need any of those, consider visiting MIgardener.com. Links will be in the description box below. We've got you covered. And as always, we'll see you all in the garden. Take care.